Hey sports fans, Haroon Rashid, Kemia Consulting, and welcome to this special edition of Haroon's Hangout, the internationally featured show where we make digital marketing simple, straightforward, and fun. Today, we have a very special guest with us. We have Mr. Saleem Shafi, who is absolutely awesome. If you don't know who Saleem is, you need to sort your face out and sort your life out, seriously, because he is really, really clever. And I think you guys are going to really enjoy today's show. So, a bit about Saleem. He is a neuro coach, and he really knows a lot about neuromarketing and the neuroscience of human performance improvement. And what that means is he actually has a unique insight into why people do what they do, which is so cool in my opinion. And I first saw Saleem talk in Bradford, West Yorkshire, where he talked about neuromarketing and all that good stuff. So we're really pleased to have such an expert on the show today. Welcome, Saleem.
Good morning, Haroon. It's awesome. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me on the show.
No problem, no problem. Thank you for coming on. We're going to have a really great time. So I wanted to get you on the show today to talk about neuromarketing, funnily enough. So I wanted to just talk about what is neuromarketing, first of all, because it's a real big buzzword at the moment. Then I wanted to talk about the different parts of the brain and talking about those in a bit more detail and explaining what the functions of those are and why they're important for businesses to know about. And then thirdly, I'd just like to see what are your top tips for businesses? How can they use this information then practically for online marketing? So how can they get more leads, engagement, inquiry, sales, and all that good stuff? How does that sound?
Okay, I'll do my best.
Awesome. So do you want to just give us a very brief definition of what is neuromarketing?
Yeah, well, neuromarketing has really taken off in the last 15 years with some significant breakthroughs in science technology. We know more about the human brain in the last probably 3 or 5 years than we've done in the entire existence of the human race. And this is down to technology in terms of how we can now look inside the brain, free of cutting it up, free of splicing it up, free of putting dangerous chemicals into it, and see how it responds to any particular stimulus in any situation. So, of course, the breakthroughs in medical science are going to be tremendous, and we're going to know, we're going to deal with a lot of medical problems in the next few years that we've had real problems with now. But it's also opened up the world in business, and neuromarketing has really only been available to corporates. Just about every corporate on the planet is using neuromarketing. Hollywood uses neuromarketing for every single video that they put out there, because they know that they want to stimulate particular parts of your brain to get a particular response. So neuromarketing is no longer marketing to the person, but it's marketing to this guy. You see that, the human brain. And because the technology is now getting cheaper, we're going to now find that this is going to come into smaller and medium-sized businesses. But taking that on a little bit further, we don't need to worry about the technology anymore, because the brain responds to 6 particular stimuli. And if your marketing messaging includes these 6 particular stimuli, you're going to accelerate your sales cycles, even in a downturn economy. You're going to find it easier to get more yeses, or more, yes, I'm interested, I want to know more. And so what we've been doing in the last few years is showing businesses and organizations how they can implement these 6 stimuli in any format that you use, be it on the internet, be it on a face-to-face meeting, be it on a telephone conversation, even with call centers. And this can open up the doors to A, being remembered when the client is ready to do business, but put you in a situation where you're seen head and shoulders above the competition, even for people who've been loyal to other organizations. Does that help?
That's fantastic. That's really, really great. Okay, so there's a lot of stuff in there.
Yes, there is.
One thing I'm very surprised about is that, like you say, this stuff isn't new. It's only new to the small business realm, but this has been going on for however many years. Hollywood using this as well?
Yeah. I mean, I can't name certain other organizations, but some of the biggest fast food chains in the world and some of the major supermarkets, food organizations use some specific strategies which are aimed at your brain below your level of conscious awareness, to get you to feel that you've got to buy something.
And again, so that's really powerful then for a small business to know about, because like you're saying, it's not just about shouting louder or just about trying to be, I don't know. It just sounds like a smarter way of doing things, and it sounds like it's an easier sell. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, what you're doing when you know how these 6 stimuli work, you're talking to the part of the brain that is a trigger for every single decision that we ever make. It's the gatekeeper, and unless we speak to this in a certain way, what you tend to find is that people switch off and switch off very, very quickly. And the reason this is because the brain has a limited amount of energy supply. It uses around a quarter of all the energy that you need in a day. So for this 2 to 3 pound organ, using 25% of our energy is quite a lot. So there's a particular mechanism in the brain that monitors the energy usage, and so if we don't give this brain interest into what it's really interested in, what it wants to know about, it's going to switch off the energy supply to the part of the brain that ultimately says, all right, I want to go on further and have a look at this. And then that's
Brilliant.
Made away.
Brilliant. And so you mentioned 6 stimuli. Could you just talk to us a bit more about that, please?
Yeah, the 6 stimuli, and I don't want to take credit for this. I worked with an organisation called SalesBrain a few years ago, and SalesBrain are the world's #1 neuromarketing agency and the world's first neuromarketing agency. And the guys who set this company up have closed, we're talking about several $1 billion worth of deals they've closed to some of the most high-profile organisations on the planet. So it's been a privilege to work with them. And they took 2 years off, and they did this neuroscience research. So I don't take all the credit for this. But these 6 stimuli, these 2 guys are Christophe Morin and Patrick Renoise, and I'll point you to one of their pieces of work a little bit later on in the show. But there are 6 stimuli, and some of these will be very obvious. And I think most of your clients, when they actually hear these, think, yeah, we know these, but probably we're not applying them in our work, in our messaging. And these don't just apply in business, these can apply in our personal conversations, in our personal relationships, and we tend to find things smooth out as well in these situations. So what these 6 stimuli are, the first one is the self-centered. The message that you portray to your customer must always be relating to your customer's pains and needs. Put them first. In other words, always put them first, not yourself, not your business, your customer. Probably the most obvious, but it's a must-have. Otherwise, you won't get a response. Second stimuli is to create contrast in your message compared to what your customer's already seeing. If you don't create a before and after situation, a with or without situation, or this is old, this is new, then it's very hard for the brain to make a decision. It's a little bit like I'll share a little story with you. An experiment that's been tested time and time again, and it works. If I haven't got a frog, but imagine my hand is a frog.
Okay.
And this is well, we've got the Tour de France in Leeds at the moment, so we'll call him Patrick. Yeah. You won't mind me saying that. Okay. And Patrick's in this lovely warm room, and he's hopping around. And now let's just say he hops into a bucket full of hot water. What's he going to do?
He's going to jump out.
He's going to jump out. Okay. Now he's jumped out of this bucket full of hot water, and he's hopping around. He's now jumped into a bucket of water which is about the same temperature as the room. What's he going to do?
He'll stay there.
He'll stay there. Yeah, he can't tell any difference. Now here's the interesting thing. If we turn up this bucket of water, gently heat it up to boiling like the first bucket, what will Patrick do?
I would have hoped he would have jumped out, but I'm guessing he wouldn't.
Most of the time, around 80% of the times, he's going to stay in the bucket of water. He doesn't know the difference. He can't tell the difference. So if your message is not creating contrast and difference in the mind of your customers compared to the other products and services that are out there or to what they're experiencing, and that contrast is beneficial to them, so it's going to be very, very clear, they're not going to move. The part of the brain that's scanning for this information is not going to move. It's going to stay there. So it doesn't send impulses to your other thinking part of your brain, which we're going to talk about in a few moments, to say, oh, I'll just stay where I am. Or I'll think about it, or I'll have an avoidance tactic to move forward with the salesperson or on the website. But without creating contrast that is beneficial to your customer and going to improve their life tangibly, which is the next stimuli, nothing is going to happen.
Awesome, awesome. So first of all, we got pains and problems of the customer. Second, we've talked about contrast. What were the rest of them? Sorry.
Okay, stimuli number 3, tangible. We've got it. The brain that ultimately is the gatekeeper to decision making has got to be able to feel it as if it's real. This part of the brain is, imagine, it understands yellow banana. It understands bigger, better, faster. But it doesn't understand we are the leading provider of integrated cross-software solutions across many, many platforms.
I've heard that so many times on people's websites and everything, so yeah.
It's a killer. It's a killer. It will turn off your customers faster than they can think. And they just get the decision, they get a feeling, I've got to turn off. Stimuli number 4, beginning and end. The human brain loves stories, and it's programmed to seek the end at the beginning. You ever read a book, seen a movie? What's going to happen? Well, I think this will happen. So the brain is always looking for the end at the beginning, and I guess many of your viewers today will be thinking, what the outcomes of this meeting going to be? This webcast going to be? They're looking for the end at the beginning. So in this case, it's important to make bite-sized chunks of your information that flow on and flow on and flow on and thread on. Stimuli number 4, and I guess your viewers have come across this a lot. Visual. The brain is geared. The part of the brain we're going to talk about in a moment, which really is scanning, is 40% geared for visual. The visual sense is, if the brain is dealing 40% with visual, the rest of the 10% is for touch, taste, smells, and hearing. So 40% of the brain's processing power is aimed at visuals. So even if clients say they're not visual people, I can guarantee to you they are. So in other words, use visual as often as you can. And create visuals in their mind, as well as using visuals on your website, on your posters, when you're having a telephone conversation. Create a picture in the customer's mind that opens up the gatekeeper, the decision maker, to move on to the next stage. And the glue, stimuli number 6, the glue that holds everything together is, stimuli number 6, is emotion. Without emotion, you will get no movement. The part of the brain that triggers your decisions creates a cocktail of chemicals that flows into 2 other parts of your brain and then flows into your body. And this is when people start to feel something. And this feeling can either be a nice feeling or it can be an uncomfortable feeling. And what you're wanting to do is create a nice feeling or a feeling of urgency to move towards what you're offering. So if you don't create emotion within a customer, you're going to get no movement. And even customers who say they're not particularly emotional, again, I can guarantee to you they are. They're just not turned on to that particular message that they're getting. Or the big thing.
Absolutely fantastic. So I'm just going to pause just right there for a second because there's so much good stuff in here. I've been making notes as we're going along. What Saleem's done right there, guys, is he's outlined the 6 stimuli that we need to be triggering or taking into consideration when we're doing marketing. So the first one, I've been preaching this for years, and I keep saying it all the time. What are the problems and needs or the pains of your customers? Guys, you need to nail that down if you're going to make any kind of leeway. Like Saleem has said all the way throughout this, if you've noticed, it's not about you as a business. It's actually about the customer. It's about the customer. It's about the customer. It's about the customer. I'm going blue in the face. Have you got the message yet? It's about the customer. Now, I don't think we need to go over that one anymore, but the idea of contrast is really good. I really like that one. Could you give us some examples around contrast? What could people do? Is it, and maybe it's using some of the other things about visuals or whatever. What could people do to contrast in today's crowded online world?
Yeah, it's a difficult one. I think on the landing page of a website, if you just spoke about a website, for example, I think straight away show what life is like before and after.
Right.
We'll create an image, a moving image, a dull image of what life is like now, and a bright image of what life will be like after with your products and services. And you notice I'm going to hammer and hammer and hammer, and I don't apologise to your audience. Is visual, 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 before and after, with, without. So yeah, so that's one of the main keys. The other message is with writing is not to use too many words on your landing page. And if you're going to create a message which is designed to, if I use the word hook up your customer, make sure that stands out. Contrast can also be typefaces that you use. So don't use the same type of typeface on the page. The part of the message that you really want to get seen should have a typeface that is bold, but also it's got serifs on it, which attracts the eye to keep feeding the outline of the brain looks at patterns. And so if you have a serif, which is like a little line, or you know what I mean by serif?
Well, let's just explain what that is for the viewers who may not know.
A serif is like when you look at certain typeface, it just looks like it's got no little squiggly bits on the top or the end of it, so it looks very, very blank. That's hard to read. If you use a serif which has got like if you look at Times Roman, for example, on your Word, that's got a serif on it. So the eye is attracted to it, it hooks on, it's easy for it to read. So you want to make it very, very easy to read, not just these big bold letters that have got no serifs on it. It's very, very difficult to differentiate. So colour, black and red on your website homepage in terms of the main part of the message. Again, the brain is programmed, we don't know why, but it's programmed to respond to black and red, particularly red. So red can make a very powerful headline.
Wow, okay, red. Okay, I'll be testing that one out.
The other thing to do on your photos, if you want people to respond to them and look at them first, is put a red border around them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So you have other photos on there, other visuals, or any particular part of your website where you want people to go to first, put a red border around it.
Okay, I'm going to try that one next. So the next episode of Haroon's Hangout is going to have a red border around it.
The other thing to do is, when you're making a statement, is to put speech marks around the part, wrap speech marks around. You see this in certain magazines. They put speech marks on. I think the newspapers are doing it now around certain points that they want to make. The evidence is 20% recall rate improvement by putting speech marks around what you want to make. And I'll use a caveat here and be very, very careful. In this kind of marketing, good English doesn't always work.
Right.
Break the rules of grammar.
Being contrasting.
Speaking to people, break the rules of grammar.
Okay, that's fantastic. So, and guys, for those of you who are watching, we have show notes that will be available on our blog. We're going to embed this video there. We're going to have all the show notes at the bottom. So all these tips that Saleem is giving, we'll put them all there for you, and you guys can go nuts with them. I know I will be. The one thing, I think this is a nice lead on to the next thing, which was tangible, because you're talking about language now. Now, you said that people do not understand long-winded phrases, we are the leading, developing, blah, 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 blah. But you said they understand bigger, better, faster. And you're saying there has to be some sort of tangible benefit. Could you just give us a few examples or maybe some tips around how can businesses use this tip for their marketing?
Tangible is the difficult one, to be honest with you, for organisations to get. And we need to understand what their, and going to another area, what their claims are in terms of what the benefits are that they're going to give their customer. And so then what we want to do is tangible. We want to use testimonials. Testimonials that show real people, real customers who had a problem and how it's been resolved. That makes that tangible for a customer. Second of all, we want to use demos. We want to use props. For example, I did a presentation a short while ago where I talked about pain and pleasure. And I was going to talk about this later, but it'll probably be helpful now. David Ogilvy, one of the greatest marketers of all time, the guy who set up Ogilvy and then it became WPP, now the world's biggest advertising agency. he used to say, what you want to do is you want to put a fire underneath your customer's bum, feet, and then hand them the fire extinguisher. So what I did as a presentation to make it tangible, I actually put some chipwood underneath somebody's chair, telling them to light it, and then I actually had a fire extinguisher, a massive one, and gave it to the customer. That's making it tangible. So you use props that relate to show how your product or service improves the customer's life. Patrick did a case with a customer where he had them talk about money. He had them bring in a suitcase, a big briefcase, with something like, I don't know, so it had $1 million in it, to show how this company would improve their situation by having the marketing with X, Y, and Z organisation. So that's tangible. The brain that triggers decisions is looking for, people talk about having cash rather than a check. It's it's that message. Give them the cash.
Brilliant stuff. Brilliant stuff. That's really useful, and I think particularly for professional speakers, if you're watching this would be a really good tip for you guys. Get some tangible assets to communicate your message. And speaking of professional speakers, I know that they use this next one. The beginning and end thing that you talked about, stories. And funnily enough, Kemia has now started. We've started using stories in our messaging, and we've got to say we have found it to be really, really powerful. Could you just tell us a little bit more now about how businesses can use the storytelling device with their marketing?
Okay, well, I'll just step back a little bit on the stories, and the reason why this is so powerful is because stories create curiosity, they create interest, they have beginning and ends, they have natural beginning and ends, natural threads, and they also create emotion. And our brains have been wired to respond to stories. For some reason, stories have helped us become more successful. So there's a part of the brain which is deep inside the center of our, right in the middle part of our brain, which stores emotional memory. So whenever you hear a story, it triggers off an emotional memory. So you either like the story or you won't like the story. And so if you're liking the story, you will get a sensation in your body, and this will keep you interested in the story. So the key is here is to take a customer through the journey of what your story is in terms of the problem they're going to have and how they're going to benefit. It really is, and take them and chunk down that story into bite-sized beginning and ends, just like you see chapters in a book. So on your website, for example, you may want to have a landing page. When I mean landing page, the first page your customer goes to, that is the beginning of the story, how it's going to be solved, and then we take them on to the next bit. Well, this is how we do it. This is the journey that we're going to go on. This is how we're going to get you from A to Z.
I think that would be a really good way, or an alternative to case studies, because I tell you, a lot of our customers, if I can say this, I mean, a lot of our customers say, we need to do case studies, we need to do case studies, but what they've got in their mind is like a war and peace kind of document, which no one's going to read, to be fair. So I think that what you're saying there is a really good alternative, and as you say, have a beginning and end, a clear benefit, get the emotion out, but chunk it down. I think that's very, very appropriate for an online audience, because people's attention spans are short. They're not going to sit down and read War and Peace, are they?
No, they're not. If you're going to use a video, no more than 2 minutes. 1 minute 45 maximum, to be honest with you. Certainly no more than 2 minutes. You get your information in within that period of time. Again, I'm going to go back to this. Put your customers' pain first and give them the solution straight away. Don't wait to give them the solution. This is how you're going to benefit. This is what your pain is, and this is how you're going to benefit. And this is how we get you there.
Brilliant, brilliant. So the next one was visual, and I guess that you could say that this is an easy one to do, about using good images, and we all know images work great online, with the boom with memes and just funny pictures or inspiring pictures and quotes and all that kind of stuff that you see on social media. Do you want to maybe just talk to us just a little bit about that?
Okay, in what respect?
Just maybe some tips about what people should be kind of considering with their marketing from a visual perspective.
Okay. Well, with visual, if you use a human face, for example, it's best if they're not looking at you. They're looking towards the product or the service or the benefit of having the product or service. That's quite a powerful one. There are some specifics for men and women. Men tend to respond to red more than women do. There are some obvious ones, and you have to excuse me for this. Men will still tend to respond to a female image. Women will tend to respond to a smiling, happy face. You've got to be careful, again, for children as well, they respond to pictures of children. The key here, though, is to create an image and emotion in your customer's mind about how that product or service is going to help them. So it's not just about the visual that you use on your website, which is helpful to lead into the emotion. It's then having them create that in their own mind. And that's where the is with your content.
Fantastic, fantastic. Really good stuff. I'm getting a lot out of this. And so it's not really enough, guys, to use those generic stock photos of everyone around the boardroom or someone on the flip chart and all that kind of stuff. Get rid of the stock photos, guys. Seriously, get rid of those ones. Use other stock photos, like what Saleem's saying. You know, if it's a female audience, get smiling people, or, you know, if it's a guy, then, you know, the color red, for instance, is going to work really well. So work on your images, guys. It's really, really important. And then the last one, like you say, is emotion. So all of this really is to try and trigger that emotional part of the brain. What can you just tell us about that part of the brain? What's it called?
Okay, all right. We've got three brains. You know something called three-brain coach. And the reason a model was developed around 40, 50 years ago by a guy called McLean, who established that through evolution, our brain is developed in layers. And so I just want to run through this very, very quickly, because I hope this helps sort of back up some of the things we've already been speaking about. The outside part of our brain, if I put my fist up like this, okay, I'm going to show you, go through a hand model of the brain. The outside part of, so what we've got here, what you can see on the outside, my fingers and to the back of my wrist, is this part of the brain, the outside part of the brain. This is around 1 million years of age. So from my fingers around to the back of my palm. It's around 1 million years of age. It's known as the new brain, or the cortex, or the neocortex. It's a number cruncher, it's an analyzer, it's a processor, it's a time traveler. It predicts against past and future to see how life will be. If we just look at my fingers here, just behind this part of my fingernails is a small group of cells that makes you know that you know who you are. So this is where we get our species name Homo sapiens, the one that knows that we know. And if these cells are destroyed, we don't know who we are. When it comes to triggering decisions, this part of the brain, from the technology that we now have, which has been scanning brains, is not the part of the brain that makes decisions. And it's a relatively slow part of the brain compared to the other two parts I'm going to talk about. Okay, so this is our rational and reasoning brain. I'm going to go and open my hands a little bit now, and we're going to go into the centre of the brain, where you can see perhaps my thumb just to the top of the fleshy bit. This is it's known as the mammalian brain. It's known as the monkey brain. It's what's also called by neuroscientists the limbic system. And this is our emotional processing and engagement centre. There's a group of structures in here. Some detect fear, some detect pleasure, and also partly involved in reward. This is our feeling brain. It's around quarter of a billion years of age, and has a group of cells and connections in it that connect your brain and my brain together. So you may have been in meetings with customers where if you pick up a cup, somebody else picks up a cup. Where you scratch your face, somebody else scratches the face. This is showing rapport. You may be familiar with always generate rapport with people. So what happens is that if you do something, you trigger the same cells in somebody else's brain to do the same thing that you're doing, which shows that they feel safe and relatively comfortable with you. Okay. But when it comes to triggering decisions, this guy, the feeling part of our brain, isn't the one that triggers our decisions. I'm really going to go a little bit deeper, and just to the fleshy part of my thumb, which is like the back of the brain going down to your brainstem, which then links to your spinal cord. This is known as the old brain or the first brain. It's the part of the brain that we share with all the animals that crawled out of the oceans 450 million years ago and went on to flourish the planet. It's It's also known as the reptilian brain because we share this with reptiles and those dinosaurs. This part of the brain is the bit part of the brain that you want to speak to first of all, because it's got one job, and that's to keep you alive. And it will do anything and everything to keep you alive. It can hijack your thoughts, it can hijack your emotions, and it will not let the other parts of the brain take precedence unless it feels safe. So it'll do anything and everything to keep you alive. So the 6 stimuli that we already spoke about speak to the reptilian brain first. And when the reptilian brain is happy, it's like it holds its energy supply to the social brain and to the thinking brain, and then it sends information to it for verification of, for more finer tuning of the information that she's received. And then it gets information back from these 2 brains, so yeah, you can go on, you can continue. And if I can prove it to you in an instant that this brain will control your life. If I asked you to stop breathing for 10 minutes, could you do it?
No.
The reptilian brain will do everything it can do to get you to breathe again if you hold your breath. So this is our instinctual brain. And a lot of people say they operate from instincts. Have you ever noticed you respond to a flashing light, to a loud bang, to a sudden surprise? This is your instinctual brain doing the work before you can even think about it. And these are specific things that you can add into your website and into your social media, into your personal conversations. You can add content that speaks to this part of the brain before you even know you've had a thought about it. The instinctual brain is always present. Your thinking brain takes around minimum of half a second to 6 seconds to catch up with information that your reptilian brain has already dealt with. So it's a lifetime for the brain. This is a lifetime. You know, we wouldn't have survived as a species if we had to wait half a second to 6 seconds in order to make a decision if a predator was in front of us. And we're still operating on the same system when it comes to marketing, or messaging. So if you're ever turned off by a message, what will have happened is your reptilian brain will have said, right, okay, this doesn't apply to me, and it'll send a feeling to you, a negative emotion, for you to turn off and walk away. If you feel excited by a message, by using the 6 stimuli, or your customers feel excited, it's because you've triggered the reptilian brain to say, yep, this makes me feel safe, this is good for me, this is going to make me happier, or make me wealthier, or more successful, and achieve the goals that I want to achieve in my life.
Brilliant stuff. I know that we're running out of time, so I'm going to jump straight into this one really quickly to get this from you. So people often do say to us that, well, you know what, I don't know about this. It feels like we're manipulating people. Can't this be used for evil as opposed to good and all that kind of stuff? Could you bring a bit of balance to this? What would you say to that?
Of course. Of course, that's the case, and unfortunately, there are people who will do that. The key here is knowing how it works and what's happening. And we do have our rational brain that can catch up and start to recognise when this is happening. So whilst I can't go into all of that right now, wouldn't it be better to know how the process works? Because we can't avoid it, and there'll be people who do this. Unfortunately, certain elements of the press use this, particularly the red papers, red top papers tend to use these strategies, which is quite alarming. But wouldn't it be nice to know the process of how our brain is being manipulated, so you can recognise this and protect your business and protect your family, protect your friends?
Very good answer. Very good answer. Right. So, coming on to the Chemia workout. Every week, every guest interview we ask our guest, what is the one thing you want the viewers to do straight away in their business? So go ahead, Saleem. What do you want the guys to do?
Go to your customers and ask them what their pains and frustrations were before they became your customers in relation to the product or service that you offer, and how you resolve those, and what their life is like now, based on the answering their pains and frustrations. And then what I'd like to do, and the second bit to this, is to create a visual image of what life is like before and what life is like after.
That's really cool. That's really cool. I think we'll be doing that for ourselves as well. That's very, very great. I'm sorry, I am just aware of time, but where can people find you online, Saleem?
Okay, you can find me online at www.3braincoach.com. That's the number 3braincoach.com, and people are welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn, Saleem Shafi at LinkedIn, and just mention Haroon's Hangouts, and they'll be more than happy to connect with you. And I did promise a resource as well that I would recommend you all get. It's a very simple read. It's a book by Patrick and Christoph. It's the world's #1 book in the field of neuromarketing. It's called Neuromarketing: Understanding the Buy Buttons in Your Customer's Brain. It's available.
Oh, bro, we can put that in the show notes then. We can put the link to that in the show notes, and that's fantastic. Well, Saleem, I just want to say this has been so great. I'm so pleased. I think our viewers are going to get so much out of this. Thank you so much for coming on the show and for being with us.
It's a pleasure, Haroon. I wish you the best of luck, and I wish your customers the best of luck as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Saleem. Thank you, Saleem. So, guys, remember, we'll be putting all this on the blog with the show notes and the links and the resources. They'll all be there. So thanks a lot for watching this. Please do stay tuned for some news about our next guest, which is going to be at the end of July. And we're going to have back on the show Mr. John Hayden. As you know, John has appeared on the show a few times. He's the author of Facebook Marketing for Dummies, and he is just now becoming one of the America's leading Facebook marketing experts. So we're so glad that he's coming back on the show for a third time. And remember that you can always catch Haroon's Hangout every Wednesday, 10 a.m. Greenwich Meridian time, where we make digital marketing simple, straightforward, and fun. Do check us out next week, where I'll be hopefully interviewing my boss, Mr. Ian Sharp. We'll be talking about innovation and marketing within West Yorkshire. You don't want to miss it. But from me and Saleem, thanks a lot, guys, and take care, sports fans.
Thank you.